All right, for more on this, let's bring in Matthew Whiz Buckley, an F-18 fighter pilot and a former commercial airline pilot. Whiz, good to talk to you this morning, albeit under such tragic circumstances. This crash is very unusual because the plane didn't roll over. There didn't seem to be any sort of catastrophic failure. It just flew straight and level into the ground. Apparently, the pilots had called some sort of mayday not long after takeoff. I don't want you to speculate, but this is an aircraft that's got, as Greg Palcott was saying, a terrific safety record. This is the first time that there's been a loss of the actual aircraft itself. What are you thinking as you see what happened here?
Well, good morning, John and Jillian. Again, God bless the souls that have transitioned and their families. But you nailed it. This aircraft got airborne, and it looks like it just settled back into the ground. 100% speculation, as you just said. But John, we on the runway, all the way up to a speed we call V1, if something goes wrong, you stop the airplane. So apparently, again, speculation, nothing was going wrong up until the takeoff roll. Now, so V1 means you can stop with the runway remaining. Above that speed, it's better to take your luck in the air and deal with that problem than running off the runway and certainly crashing. So above V1, they got airborne. Obviously, didn't get the gear up, and we'll take a look at what the flaps are doing, and something happened. Again, 100% speculation, but standing in front of a whiteboard, contaminated fuel. It's very rare to see an airliner after takeoff just settle back down into the ground. The last time I can remember an airliner suffered something like this, maybe it was Sully on the Hudson, but that was a bird strike. They took birds down both motors failed. And they settled into the Hudson there. Extremely rare to have some sort of dual engine issue. Got to be honest, John, these jets, the more technology, remember the 737 MAX and the MCAS issue, the autopilot issue, there's almost too much automation. I'm sure investigators are going to look at, hey, did a flight control computer do something? Did it automatically stop throttling fuel to the motors for whatever reason? Again, all speculation. But man, watching that mishap, I'm literally scratching my head. Absolutely no clue.
I heard Whiz, another expert on our air, pilot as well, talking about the possibility that the plane could have been weighted improperly. Can you elaborate on that? Is that something that you would think about in this instance, or not really?
It could be, Jillian, with a center of gravity, weight, overweight. But with technology today, the airplanes are pretty good about yelling at you. Like, hey, we're in the wrong configuration for takeoff, or we're too heavy. There's a lot of warnings and cautions. And there's a lot of people. There's somebody called an aircraft dispatcher that takes a look at the pressure, altitude, the temperature, the winds, and lets you know whether or not you're within safe takeoff parameters. So could be a potential issue, but as sadly, John and Jillian and I've talked about on the network, sadly, way too often in the past year, an aircraft mishap is a chain of events. You take one of those chains out, one of the links in the chain, and the mishap doesn't occur. So that's well within the realm of possibility. But again, that expert and myself, we're just throwing stuff against the whiteboard, because watching an airliner get airborne and then settle right back down should just not ever happen. GE makes the motors on this aircraft, and they're pretty solid motors, pretty solid company.
For folks who are not experts like me, just so I understand, when you talk about weighting the plane, what are we talking about? I mean, I've been on a passenger plane before when they've talked about having to offload fuel because they had too much fuel and it was too heavy. Is that what we're talking about here?
It is. That's what that pilot was referring to. But again, something's got to go absolutely horrifically wrong, because we'll take a look at how much fuel you have on board, like you just alluded to, how much cargo, how much is down underneath us, and then obviously the passengers and the carry-on. So it's extremely rare for an aircraft to be overweighted. And I'll tell you, these 787s, if you're in a situation like this and you go to max power, those are big motors. If you've ever seen one, at the gate, and you're looking at it, those that you could stand, a 6'5" person could stand in that intake and still look small. So very powerful motors. It's possible, but I'm looking at some other issues. And after losing maybe losing both motors. You can tell that the aircraft didn't turn to try and come back and land. That's what they teach us. If something really, really bad is happening, you lose both motors, you just got to go straight ahead, because if they try and turn, they're going to most likely stall.
Well, again, there was some reported Mayday call that we have heard from the aircraft back to the tower. So maybe when they find the cockpit voice recorder, they'll find out what the nature of that was. But in terms of weight shift, and not to say that that's what was behind this, I recall, I think it was back in 2013. Going back to your military experience, there was an aircraft, a 747, being operated out of Afghanistan by the Air Mobility Command. It was transporting armored vehicles. They were not tied down properly. And as the plane rotated, the weight all shifted to the back, and the plane couldn't get stability. It eventually got into such a nose-up altitude that it stalled out. Is that a possibility here, that maybe the cargo containers were not properly secured?
Well, it sounds like the majority of this aircraft, there are all cargo versions. I flew for FedEx for a little bit. It's all containers in the back. I don't know if there'd be enough weight in the bottom of that aircraft to really shift. But again, I don't know if it looks like a weight or center of gravity issue, but as you alluded to, we're going to get I think they've already recovered one, maybe a couple of the CVRs. We're going to know sooner rather than later. This should not happen. The pilots did get out a Mayday call, which does tell us that they were aware something bad was happening. But at that point, we call it killing snakes in the cockpit. They're running through their checklist, their emergency procedures, and trying to minimize loss of life.
Whiz, we're going to let you go, but thanks for taking time with us on this breaking story. We appreciate your expertise.
Thanks, Whiz.
You bet. God bless, guys.
All right, you too.